Tanganyika Blue is all about what does this lake look like in 20 years. That's really our guiding principle. It is an amazingly diverse ecosystem. It's a huge lake. It's 19,000 cubic kilometers of water. It's a phenomenally large amount of water. 17% of the world's fresh water, over 300 endemic species. It is pristine, but that's the reality now. What's the reality in 20 years? And what we are trying to build is a business and a model and a system where the ecosystem can continue to flourish, but also the people and the local communities that live around the lake and can get value out of the lake so that they can flourish as well and build their lives. And the key to all of that is creating a aquaculture industry, which is coming, aquaculture is building, which is based on the ecosystem which exists and not importing, invasive species and different things from the outside, and really matching together the environmental outcomes with the economic outcomes of the communities that live around the lake to create a future that in 20 years looks like it looks today, without just this being, we only get one chance at this lake, and we don't want this just to be another story of a pristine environment which was ruined by people in their quest for more money. We want this to really be a shining example of where we were able to use what we've learned in other areas and develop this in a sustainable fashion, which is a positive outcome for the ecosystem and for the communities around the lake.
Kila siku lazima ifanyike operation ya kujua samaki waliopo katika ile keji, je, wana uhai gani, wana afya gani. Lakini pia tunafanya operation ya kukagua zile nyavu ili kuhakikisha kwamba kama kuna holes yoyote, kuna tundu lolote lipo katika neti, naweza kuzibwa haraka sana ili samaki wasiweze kutoroka na kuingia ziwani. Kingine ni kuhakikisha samaki ya siku wanakula, kwa sababu samaki ili ongezeke uzito anahitaji kula. Kwa hiyo cha kufanya ni kuhakikisha samaki wale kwa siku tunawalisha milo 3. Kwa ile milo 3 lazima nihakikishe inalishwa kwa siku. Kingine, kama kuna samaki wanakufa pia tunahakikisha tunawatoa, kwa sababu samaki anapokuwa amekufa anaweza kuambukiza samaki wengine, mwisho wa siku akaugua wengi. Na wale ambao wanauma tunawatibu. Samaki tunawatibu kama hivyo binadamu. Changamoto kubwa tulionao kwa wakulima wengi ambao wanataka kuingia katika hii sekta, wanafanya pasipo kufuata utaalamu. Cha kwanza, lazima maji yawe safi na kiwango kiwe cha kutosha. Cha pili, lazima kuwe na mbegu bora ya ufugaji wa samaki. Wakulima wengi wanaanza ufugaji lakini mbegu wanazitukua kutoka mitoni, mbegu ambazo tayari zishadumaa, haziwezi kukua hata kwa namna moja au nyingine. Ya tatu ni chakula bora. Wakulima wengi wanaingia kwenye ufugaji lakini unakuta wanalisha ugali wa kawaida, wanalisha kumbikumbi wadudu, wanalisha majani. Mwisho siku samaki hakui kwa sababu hapati zile tunaita essential nutrients ambazo samaki anatakiwa asipate zote 5: protein, carbohydrate, vitamin, mineral na fat. Kwa hizi zote lazima ununue chakula bora. Samaki akizipata hizi, ndio miezi 6 hadi 7 ndio anafikisha ule uzito sasa ambao anatakiwa uweze kumvuna.
We're actually quite lucky that the water quality in this lake is so good that our fish, the Tanganyika tilapia, has a very clean taste. So we had a customer just the other day who said, I don't like that tilapia because it's muddy. And what she was referring to is that a lot of tilapia is grown in ponds, and a pond is obviously quite shallow, has an earth base, it can taste a little muddy. We said, look, try the fish, see what you think. And she was blown away by how clean the taste is. And that's all thanks to the environment that we have here. Yeah, all of our consumption is domestic, and it's quite local at the moment. We're still quite small in terms of what our plans are. We're producing between 30 and 40 tons a year. We hope to expand that to something like 500 tons by the end of next year. When we're at 500 tons, we'll be certainly selling into Dar es Salaam, and probably all through the middle of the country, Tabora, Morogoro, Dodoma. But for now, it's very much local consumption. I say local, I also mean sort of regional, which is Congo and Burundi. So we're here on the lake, they're just across the water, they're our neighbors. So people also buy fish from us, and then they will take them to Burundi or Congo across the lake. But export is possible in the future, but this business is about domestic consumption. And so our customers are people who just buy 1 or 2 fish for their dinner, but then there are also people who buy 100 kilograms of fish and transport them to a local town 2 hours away, sell in Kasulu, sell in Uvinza, but are all just into the domestic market. But it's very, very fortuitous that our fish that we're producing are just actually delicious. We want to use that reputation that Lake Tanganyika has as a pristine environment to really draw people towards the fish and to grow the industry for the local communities around. Our cages are pretty basic, but they're also structurally quite sound. So from a technological point of view, they're not that advanced. They're a sort of a good balance between a strong cage, a sturdy cage that can survive in the lake, but also making it accessible, that we can produce them ourselves, we weld them together ourselves, and they are a cage that other people can copy and other people can use, which is sort of the whole ethic of the company, is that this is a demonstration. This is a commercial company, but it's also it wants to be a leader, and we want to show how this can develop and how other people can replicate what we're doing and have their own success. We need to be price competitive, otherwise, the customer's not going to choose to buy, Tanganyika Blue's fish. So our competition is wild catch, but also as we expand to Dar es Salaam and other places, our competition becomes frozen imports from China and from other countries. So cost competitiveness is key, and you achieve that by running a lean operation, but also by having a high quality product that the market wants to respond to.
Niseme kwa wasichana labda wengi wanafikiria labda kazi ya uvuvi ni kuingia ziwani labda kwenda kuvua samaki. Hapana. Kazi ya uvuvi ni labda kuhusiana na ufugaji. Ni kazi ambayo ni nyepesi, na maana inatakiwa ujitoe mwenyewe kwa moyo wako unafanya kazi. Kama mfano mimi hapa nilipokuwa nakuja mara ya kwanza naona kama kazi ni ngumu kama nini, lakini mwisho wa siku nimezoea. Sasa hivi naona kazi ni nyepesi. Kwanza jambo la kwanza toka nimefika kufanya hii kazi ya ufugaji wa samaki, labda ile kuingia kwenye pondi, mdada unaingia labda kwenye maji, kwenye pondi, labda kuchukua samaki, labda mnavuna au mnataka labda kuwatolea mayai au kuchukua vifaranga. Ile kazi ya kuingia unajidumukiza kwenye matope, nilikuwa naona kama kazi ngumu, maana nilikuwa sijazoea. Kwa sasa hivi nimezoea. Pia kazi nyingine labda kubeba mifuko ya chakula, unakuta mdada kama mimi nabeba kilo 25 za chakula, inakuwa ni vigumu kwangu. Pia kitu kingine labda kupanda kwenye keji kule juu, mwanamke naogopa kama nitaweza nikazama, kwa nakuwa sijiamini. Kwa sasa hivi najiamini, naweza kazi zote nazifanya. Mtu yoyote anayependa kujifunza kuhusiana na ufugaji wa samaki, aidha kwenye mabwawa kwa maana ya pondi au kwenye keji kwa maana ya vizimba, chuo vinapatikana pale FETA, Fisheries Education and Training Agency, vinapatikana Kigoma, pia hata Mwanza kipo na Bagamoyo kipo. Kwa ushauri wangu mimi, ni muhimu sana kujifunza kuogelea, maana unaweza ukapata ajali kule, hamna kukuokoa, unaweza ukajisaidia mwenyewe, ukajiokoa mwenyewe, ukaogelea mpaka nchi kavu. Mimi ndoto yangu kubwa ni kuja kufanya biashara. Kama nitakuwa na mtaji wa kutosha, naweza nikaanzisha mambo ya ufugaji, kwa sababu ni kitu ambacho nimekisomea na nakipenda, nimeridhika kuwa nacho kwa maisha ya baadaye.
The original idea of the business was actually built around a cold chain. So there are no fridges in Kigoma, for example, as in, there's fridges for our Coca-Colas, but there's no fridges for meat or fish or dairy. So the original idea was that we would install a cold chain in Kigoma where fishermen, when they land their catch, they can preserve their catch for a couple of days, because at the moment everyone needs to sell their catch either fresh on that day, or they smoke it or they dry it. And when you do those two things, it loses a lot of value. When we looked at that business, we realized that the wild catch was just unsustainable. It's been declining every year. due to overfishing, due to sort of improved technologies of fishing, using smaller nets or using more powerful lights or more powerful engines, which has just caused the catch to decline a lot, which has a terrible impact on the environment. You know, like we are destroying these fishing stocks, but it's terrible for the long-term health of the communities around Kigoma that are supported on the lake. You know, people's children will not necessarily be fishing in the same way as they are now because the catch just isn't going to be there. So once we realized that the future is aquaculture. The future isn't these wild fisheries which are regulated but poorly enforced. So that's when we looked at, okay, well, how can we build something which future-proofs the lake for 20 years? How can we make sure that this ecosystem still exists? The wild catch is unsustainable, it's declining, it's a dying industry, unfortunately. We still have all these people, they're going to need fish, they're going to need protein. How can we do something that's going to build for the future a bit more? And so then we started looking at how can we also do that in an environmentally sustainable fashion. And that's where the native species aquaculture concept really came in, which is interesting that it came from looking at the wild catch and seeing how unsustainable that was, and then reconsidering how we can sort of reimagine what the future industry could look like, given that one was declining. So what do we have that can come in its place and actually grow in a better way than the wild catch industry was previously? A few of the things that we do to ensure a high quality fish that goes to the market is we put a lot of effort into very gentle handling of the fish. So not overstocking your cage. If you overstock your cage, that means too many fish in the one area. They get stressed, they get diseases, they get deformed. They can, if they are mentally stressed, they start biting and they can lose fins. And that, of course, you can see that in the final product. And that's not attractive to the consumer. That's not what they want to see. They want to see a nice, whole, shiny fish. So the main elements are like use good fish feed, which is going to be healthy for the fish and healthy for the end consumer, and have good management practices to make sure that your fish are growing in clean water, with plenty of space, in not a stressful environment, and try and reduce the stress on the fish the whole way through the process. Here at Tanganyika Blue, we breed our own fish. So we have taken what's called broodstock. So that's native fish from the lake, from the Tanganyika tilapia. We have our own small ponds where we have a certain number of male fish and female fish, and then so we produce our own fingerlings, which is what baby fish are called. So all of it is the product of Lake Tanganyika. The number one thing for that really is species choice. Physically, what fish have you got in your cages? Do they fit with the local environment? Are they known to the other biodiversity in the lake, the ecosystem? And if you introduce something, then you have a higher risk of unintended consequences from introducing. But if you're using something which is native to the ecosystem, then you're really, really minimizing the risk factor of having any sort of negative externalities from your fish farm. Water depth is a really important factor in all fish farms. And a lot of the fish farms that have, let's say, localized environmental issues. So that could be fish death in their own farm, that could be fish death or water quality issues in the surrounding area. A lot of that is to do with farming in too shallow water or farming in an too enclosed environment. So your water might be quite deep, your water might be 10 or 15 meters deep, but you're in the mouth of a river or you're in a cove, you're in somewhere where doesn't have good water flow, doesn't have good water cycling. And Lake Victoria, unfortunately, is for fish farming, it's quite a shallow lake. So there's lots of areas where people are in 5, 7, 10 meter depth, which is really pushing it in terms of flushing the cages, keeping the water moving through and avoiding nutrient buildup around the cage. Quite luckily, Lake Tanganyika is a very deep lake, and it gets deep quite quickly. So it's only 60 kilometers across, so you don't need to go very far offshore to be getting into 20, 30 meter water depth, which is a very good amount of water below the depth of the cage. The cage might be 7 to 10 meters deep, then you've got another 20 meters of water below that. water moves through that water column and really flushes the whole system. So you're not getting that nutrient buildup in a very localized sense. And that is really important from the health of your farm, but also the health of the surrounding ecosystem where you're located. Fish feed is one of the most important elements in a fish farm. It's as much as 70 to 80% of your cost base of any fish farm goes into fish feed. When the feed arrives on your farm, you can do simple things such as a float test. So it's important that the feed floats. And what that means is then that when you throw the feed into the cage, it stays on the surface until the fish eat all of the feed and it doesn't sink through to the bottom. And if it sinks through to the bottom and through the cage, you're losing money because that's feed that the fish aren't eating, but you're also increasing the nutrient base underneath your cages in a way that is unsustainable. So if it floats, that's a good sign that it's good fish feed. But at the end of the day, the way that you know if you have high quality feed is if the fish are responding to that feed. So if you feed them and you come back 2 weeks later and you fed them the right amount and they've put on weight, you know you've got high quality feed. If they haven't put on any weight, then you might find out that the guys put in 20% sawdust just to sort of bulk out the feed and you're not getting anything you want. And you need to be doing that constantly because fish feed is a technical process. And even, we could get good feed this week, we order some more again in a month. The production line in the factory has been a bit different, some manager's been off sick. The feed quality might not be the same that next month. Kigoma is quite a remote region in Tanzania. It's a long way from the sort of center of power and money and stuff in Dar es Salaam. And people can look at that as a negative. But also it is, in some ways, if you flip it on its head, it means that things which are near Kigoma are away from everything else as well. So it's actually an opportunity. And so that's one of the elements behind our fish farm is that we're about local consumption. And we can outcompete people coming from Lake Victoria or from China with their fish because we are here. And if we produce a good quality product, people will respond and people will buy it because it's the right economic choice for them and their family. So over the next 12 to 18 months, we will be developing an expansion site for Tanganyika Blue. So we've managed to secure some land just south of Kigoma town, about 45 minutes away, which is a beautiful piece of land right on the lake. And it's there which we're going to develop the full facility, the full native species aquaculture facility for Lake Tanganyika. In addition to the commercial farm, which we hope to scale to 500 tonnes by the end of next year, with an aim of 3,000 tonnes of production, hopefully another 18 months after that. We also want to have this as a working demonstration farm, almost a shamba darasa where people can come and they can stay on the farm for 2 weeks and they can do short courses in hatchery management or pond management or cage management, the different stages of fish handling, fish processing, so they can really get a sense of what an operating farm looks like. So taking the lessons out of the classroom and actually doing it on a farm. And so we hope to have people come and stay for, as I say, 1 or 2 weeks to do a short course. They can come from Dar es Salaam, they can come from our neighbours across the lake, wherever it is, to come and see what actually is involved in aquaculture, and if it's really something for them, and if it is, how can they learn some practical knowledge to go back to their home region and develop it really fully themselves as well. As of today, we have about 15 employees. We expect that number to grow to something close to 100 by the end of the next year. And then as our farm grows, as it continues to grow, we think that when we get to 3,000 tons of production, we'll be employing something like 500 people.
Kwanza kwa sisi, kwanza tutakuwa watu wa kwanza kufanya mradi wa samaki. Naweza nikasema kwa Kigoma nzima pia, kutoka tunazalisha wenyewe vifaranga na tunawakuza hivyo vifaranga na kukuza. Fursa kwanza ndo kama hivyo nisema mwanzo, kutakuwa na vibarua Kwa hiyo wenyeji pia watapata nafasi ya kupata kazi kwetu. Tunavyoongeza cage, kuna mambo ya kulisha samaki, kuna zile movement za tuseme kama za shamba zinakuwa nyingi sana kwa sisi kama sisi pekee yetu hatuwezi kufanya.
Our cages here behind me, they're in about 12 to 15 meters of water, which is about the minimum that you want to have your cages in. The deeper the water, the easier it is to flush through the system, to be turning over the water in the cages, which is important for the amount of oxygen that are in the cages, which the fish need to survive, in terms of, you know, moving the nutrient buildup in those cages, moving those through the system. At our new site, the cages will be in about 30 meters of water, which is the recommended perfect depth for aquaculture. Any deeper than that, you don't get any more benefit in terms of water cycling, in terms of flushing through the cages, in terms of water quality. In fact, you just have more cost because you need deeper anchors, you need bigger chains. The cages are more exposed to the elements. The cages we have here at the moment, they're made from galvanized steel, floating on barrels. They're 6 meter by 6 meter squares. When we increase the production, we're actually going to move to circular cages. And those cages are made from HDPE pipe, so 6-inch HDPE pipe, which is very buoyant. So those cages float from the creation of the pipe, which is the barrier of the cage. And that's much bigger. That's about 4 times the size of these cages. So we will continue to use these cages for the mid-sized fish, say 5 grams to 30 grams. Then when the fish get a bit bigger, we transfer them to the large cages, the grow-out cages, where they go from 30 grams up to say 350 grams. At the moment we have 9 cages here. At the new site we will have 30 cages like this, but then we will have 60 large cages as well, additionally, which will enable us to scale the production. Again, we're very blessed at the new site. We have a lot of space, so if we need to put in more cages, that's not an issue. If we need to keep growing, if the demand is there, then we can add more cages every month if we need to.
Lake Tanganyika, the 4 sharing countries, they are being governed by Lake Tanganyika Convention, which was signed a few decades ago, whereby the countries are they are obliged to make sure that there is no introduction of new species in the lake. They have to maintain the existence of the endemic species. For that one to happen, obviously, anything which needs to be done within Lake Tanganyika Basin need to be originated from the basin itself. Whoever wants to do anything in the lake, first of all, they have to work under the umbrella of Lake Tanganyika Authority, and as an institute, we are working under that umbrella. The institute, which is under the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock.
We're very lucky that we live and work in a really stunning natural setting, and our new site is second to none for that sort of. I mean, it's just a beautiful place to be. So we will also, in addition to, you know, the warehouse and the ice machine and all the sort of technical things that we need, we also have the chance to build a really lovely built environment down there. It's a little bit far out of town, so a lot of our employees will be living there. So we also need to make it a nice place to live. Luckily, yeah, look, the sun sets every evening behind the Congolese mountains. We have enough land where we can keep our industrial side on one thing, and we have our staff housing and recreation areas and places to, you know, have communal dinners and relax in the evenings separate from that, while overlooking the lake and the mountains. And we want to, so when I mentioned before about people coming for short courses, we also want them to have a nice time. If they have a positive feeling about the lake and about aquaculture, and they have an enjoyable couple of weeks, they're much more likely to go back and have success. We're at the beginning of this journey, and you know, we always talk about at Tanganyika Blue, we always talk about what does the lake look like in 20 years? And that's really how we're looking at this. So we've been going for a little while, we've managed to get started, things are working well, and But this is just the beginning, and I'm really excited for the next 1 year, 5 years, 20 years to develop this project to sort of be able to share Lake Tanganyika and the native species of tilapia with Kigoma and with Tanzania and with the world, because yeah, it's really a really special place, and we really look forward to being able to develop the full potential that's out here.